Josh, excited to have you on. You and the AirOps team are very top of mind for a lot of people. You've been doing some great webinar content as well on your side, and the world is all ablaze with this content engineer thing. So I figured no better guy to talk to than you. So thanks for coming.
Yes, happy to be here. Thanks a lot for the invite. Excited to chat about content engineering.
Yeah. So, let's start there for people who are not aware of this new kind of emerging term. What is a content engineer? What is that exactly?
So a little while ago, I was thinking about, of course, like AI and just some of the capabilities that we have with like AI workflows, but then also thinking about like some low code automations and things like that. And then just how different that was compared to maybe when I first started out as a writer, as a content marketer, as a content manager, as an SEO person, and just thinking like, hey, there are all these other capabilities that I don't think teams are necessarily like accounting for as far as what you can do with AI, because it is so much more than just like content generation. It is really how you develop systems together. And so what I started thinking about was there really is a new role that teams, SEO and content teams need in particular. And I called that the content engineer because I'm thinking that writers think in ideas and strategists think in outcomes, and then the content engineers build those systems that deliver both. And to be fair, content engineering is not a new term. It's actually been in like UX content for at least like from what I'm seeing, like 10 or 12 years. I think like Anne Rockley, who long-term content marketers would probably know, I think she first talked about that as somebody who has a foot in the technology world, but also in the content world. But I just think that with the accessibility with some of these tools a little bit more, and with the change of AI, that the role is really being redefined, and that there's some new capabilities that go along with content engineering.
Who is the right person to be in this role? Is this a former content marketing specialist or manager who just like vibe codes in the side? Is it an engineer who kind of figures out this emerging area? Maybe both. Who do you think the ideal is for this role?
Yeah, sure. So we've started training content engineers at AirOps through our cohort program, which is like, it is what it sounds like. It's like a 3-week course. We also now have a self-directed course at airops.com/university. And a lot of people coming through are SEO managers and then content marketers all across the scale. So some folks would be like, hey, I'm just a writer. I came up through this writing background. Other people, of course, like they're technical SEOs. They might have some more technical experience to where they're like coding in Python or something like that. So it really is like that whole spectrum. But the really cool thing is that we are finding folks being able to build with no matter their background, they're being able to build with AirOps and similar tools once they start thinking in a slightly different way about like, hey, what output am I trying to get to? And then how do I kind of back up and get there? So yeah, it's definitely an exciting time. But as we'll dive into, I think anybody who has a content background and kind of knows what they're aiming at as far as like SEO and content marketing goes could develop into a content engineer.
Yeah, we've seen that a little bit internally. We've had 2 different people on our team. One currently who've kind of just embraced, I think, a variant of this idea. So I've seen that as well. But they were kind of engineering first or on the side already. And I think it was a natural evolution for this kind of people who love playing in Python. And
Right.
many people who are listening to this may have seen an article kind of countering the idea of the content engineer by the very smart Ryan Law
Yeah.
of Ahrefs. And his take was anything that can scale will be commoditized away, is what I would say in summary, I suppose. And the idea of hiring this may lead to that just commoditized outcomes, maybe not actually that much growth. What was your reflection on his article that he went and hired a content engineer? Of course, he's a little biased because he's a writer himself. What was your take seeing that article?
Yeah, I really liked it. I've, chatted with Ryan over the years. Like, I thought it was a really good conversation, and it is good to bring up. I would say that his focus was mostly on like content generation. And I would say that that's not always the case of what you can do with a content engineer. So one thing that I like to point out is internal linking, for example. So I had this like massive spreadsheet of like this link connects to here and like have it all mapped out, right? But there are now workflows that a content engineer, content manager, an SEO specialist can start to build to where you can use some of these LLMs to help you identify anchor text, which URLs might fit in a certain blog, and all of these like kind of fundamental things. So that's just one example of where I really see automation probably doing, or like let's call it semi-automation, because we always want to have a human in the loop and to review like some of the suggestions. But that really gets you like 70, 80, maybe even 90% of some of that manual work without quality being an issue. So that's one example. But if we want to talk about the writing in particular, one thing that I have found is, let's just take a very typical SEO post, like some type of evergreen content. I used to work at ClickUp and some other project management tools. If I'm writing what is project management, I would go to the SERP. I would see what was ranking. I would see some of the topics that they're covering. I would look at their headlines and their headers and what they would do. And then sometimes I would be like, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to pull this one over. I'm going to like write and copy this. Oh, I see how they format it. So it's very much a comparison that we've all done before, probably. And with content engineering and with these AI workflows, you can like build or at least see and do that analysis kind of automatically. You can scrape that, then you can like build your own outline. You can start to add in your own point of view. And so then you could even just build that out to your template, give it to a writer, and the writer doesn't ever have to use an AI text generation if they don't want to, right? If I just hand them a brief and an outline. So take that a level deeper, and it also helps a lot with research. Let's say deep research, those type of things. A lot of the processes that we would do now allows you to like get there faster. So from that perspective, your writing process could stay the same, but your production could still increase because you've kind of helped on some of these production ends. And then on the back end, it definitely helps with like the promotion aspect as far as like recaps, summaries, points that you could share on LinkedIn, for example. So I think that is kind of what I think about with content engineering and how we're encouraging maybe the industry to think a little bit broader beyond just like text generation.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. You actually reminded me of a conversation. I saw your post about the content engineer prior to Ryan Law's post, and I
Mhm.
immediately brought it to our director of automation. I was like, is this actually a better title for you? Which is just a conversation we had when I saw that post from you. And sort of some of the back and forth we had was what he's doing doesn't exactly describe content engineering. It can describe other things. It could be internal linking. It could be keyword research. And we settled on just a director of automation being a better kind of descriptor where he's doing everything
Sure.
you just described. And we do very little actual writing other than kind of summaries and same things you described with that same automation as of now. Who knows where that will go. But I guess one of my thoughts in hearing you say that is, do you still think content engineer is the right word? Because that feels like some of the confusion is that word content in there. It's still, is it just like there's automation around search activities, but the content piece may cause some confusion potentially. But maybe that's not a big a deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could just depend on like the team setup and maybe even the person's background for that. I mean, again, like sometimes we have content marketers that are doing probably more SEO than they want to be doing. We have SEO people on certain industries or an SEO editor who's really like a content manager. Like some of the terms are getting a little fuzzy there, but I think the baseline there is like dealing with content in some way. So to your point earlier, it's like, yeah, who do you upskill around this? Like maybe it is like your automations person who kind of does this. Maybe they're really skilled in project management and Zapier automations, and then so like maybe they set this up for your team. I think it does depend on the org a little bit, but yeah, we're seeing people from like SEO technical managers all the way to content marketers like really kind of embrace this because what it boils down to, I think, is it's like, what are you already doing that can start to be automated in some way and to help you like um, produce these things a little bit faster and also having that eye on quality as far as like editorial review goes. And so that's something that we always want to emphasize is like, this is definitely a hybrid approach. It's not just like press the easy button and sit back. It really is like customizing it to what you need and then reviewing it.
Yeah, makes sense. And I mean, on that, you're at the front lines and maybe have seen a good amount in both directions of people who like pushed a button and created a lot of text from AI, probably exclusively, and maybe didn't do the best version of that, and
Sure.
I would guess it came back to bite them. And then there's people who've kind of done a mix. Like, where do you see is that kind of coming back around, and now there's just more of what you just described using a tool like AirOps is like people are really thinking about everything around it versus the text generation? Or like, are you seeing pure AI performance still do pretty well? I'm sure some clients still have those, except maybe it's not an exception. Just curious your kind of state of the AI text generation
Yeah,
landscape.
I mean, we don't suggest uh, just like blasting out a bunch of AI text. I mean, there's some, we could go back and forth about whether Google approves that or not. I mean, their official guidelines are like, hey, as long as it's useful and informative, then they're okay with AI text, at least from what I saw from their May, I think, release about that. So it really does depend on like your use case and how informative it is. I just had a person on a content engineering webinar series that we're doing where it shows how real people are using AirOps. And he built out all of these informational pages for cities and states in Germany, specifically around like building permits. And it was kind of that like programmatic templated setup, but his competition was low and people are finding it valuable for what they need. And so he showed me some examples though of where he had to be like, hey, this isn't right. This isn't correct. This isn't a good image. This isn't the correct information. So then he went back in there and like manually corrected it, or somebody on his team did. I think one thing to keep in mind here is to just do things in batches and to experiment and to make sure it meets your level of quality. So in tools like AirOps, you can upload like style guidelines, brand kits, provide examples within the workflow of like, hey, this is our ideal output in our ideal state. Can you get there? How do we get there? And so I think one thing that is a little bit different than some of these like one shot type things is that in AirOps, you can use like multiple LLMs to help you get there. So this person I just had, it's just top of mind. He was like, I use Perplexity for research. I'm using Claude to help me generate some of the text. And then I think he had like some proofreading, like style guides in ChatGPT or something like that too. So it really is like this mix of models and also oversight. And so I think as an industry and just as we're all becoming more familiar with AI capabilities, that we're really seeing that mix take off. I mean, the next level is not like, are you using ChatGPT or not? It's like, what are you using ChatGPT for versus Perplexity versus Claude? And I think we're now, and insert whatever other LLM you want there. But I think as an industry, we're just now starting to like make those distinctions. And I do think that's like the next era.
Yeah, how do you think about that as a company where, I mean, I haven't really been fully in the tool, obviously heard good things about it, but that, yeah, study came out from Graphite, I believe, who said, I think like 7% of page one results are generated by AI. It's like if people take the direction incorrectly, they may go down a very dangerous rabbit hole. And maybe that data was incorrect. And I think kind of counter studies were put out by Patrick Stox, which I thought were good, of like, it's not black and white. It's not AI versus human. It's like a little bit of use, moderate use, substantial, which is, I think, what you're also guiding on. But as your product has evolved, have you thought through that more? Like, are there like, I don't know if you handhold people more, but in terms of like, don't do this kind of thing. But yeah, is there anything there that you've thought about and pushed towards?
Yeah, I mean, really, it is about the comfort of the company and how much they want to like take what they want to use it for ultimately. Like, and honestly, as we know, working with clients, some people have really high editorial standards. Some people have very different ones. I will say one of our top customers is Carta, who has very strict policy guidelines and review policies because they're dealing with like financial type information. But they're an AirOps customer and uses it for like lots of different ways. So I would like to say like AI doesn't really kill content. It just is strategically rewiring how teams are operating. And so if you think about it through that lens, sometimes there will be a post or an article that may be okay with AI content. Other times it won't be. Even before I started working here, I always said like different posts have different jobs. And so we know that there will be more editorial scrutiny on like a programmatic template or just a template versus like an investor letter, right? So kind of thinking it through like, hey, what's the job to be done here might like is like a good gauge for how much AI you should use, shouldn't use, and like what perspectives and just how much there should be. So in general, I would say I agree with like Patrick's response there is it really is like a hybrid version. And so one of our big use cases is content refresh because I think we have a client or something that deals with, like regulations around uh, short-term rentals and things like that. So like one county, you're in Texas, right? So one county in Texas is going to have a different regulation than one county in Maine. But if you're trying to educate all these different clients, you have to like be updated on that. You can include workflows to maybe help you update your content based on some of those changes. So updating content, refreshing content, adding new stats, industry perspectives, I think is a really good use case that may just mean like a little bit of a rewrite or a little bit of a refresh versus like a total rewrite.
Yeah, makes sense. We're with you on that as well. That's one way we've been thinking about it in our own tech stack. And I think it kind of goes towards we're if you're we'll share Patrick's post in the show notes, but we're looking at the image of his graph, kind of segmenting how much AI use there was in an article versus the black and white, it used it or it didn't. And I think I'd love to see the permutation on that original like 7% page one study
Mm.
for like minimal use, where maybe an update like you described is in that minimal use. Maybe it goes into the 11 to 40% of the content's AI level, which is actually pretty significant in his sample. It's actually the most significant, which is a little surprising. But yeah, I think this data is interesting. It shows, like all things, it probably is, it's a depends answer more than yes or no.
So he's showing moderate AI use is like 11 to 40%, right? Which is that green line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it really, yeah, I mean, we hate to say it depends, but it does depend. It depends on the type of post that you're writing. It depends on, like I said, that research stage. I encourage everyone to think about it for that. And it depends on the job of the post, the job of the article that you're trying to do. So yeah, that's something that we encourage all teams to keep in mind.
So that content engineers, should you, maybe it's a director of automation, maybe however you want to describe it,
Yeah.
whatever the fit is for your company, where do they fit in an org chart? Like who are they reporting to? Who do you think, owns that? What do you think the right structure is there?
I'm seeing a lot of folks still be on the SEO or like content teams. I would say that's still kind of the natural fit for this. What we are very interested in is kind of the next level as you start to empower people with AI all the way across an organization. So at some point, I think you'll need what we're calling a context librarian, which is this person who is like, here is the ground truth for like our brand style guide, all of our white papers, all of our articles. If we think about like an enterprise size company, about like how many style guides they have across, like if I think about like Coca-Cola or something, I'm sure they have dozens and dozens of teams with like dozens and dozens of brand guidelines with all this like cross-functional governance that'll need to happen. So eventually you're going to need like an AI ready knowledge base to help kind of like maintain that and to make sure people are kind of dialing into the right area. So who knows where that lives? I don't have a lot of experience with companies at that size, but is that in the IT department? Is it in the brand comms department? Is it like some mix of the two? Because you're going to have like internal communications versus external communications. So just like maintaining that library, and knowledge base, I think is something that's going to be even more important. So we're seeing that as a role that could definitely emerge. And then we are seeing like content engineers kind of orchestrate those workflows and build those workflows and start to like make suggestions on like, hey, let's use Claude for this. Let's use Perplexity for this. And then do the Q&A on that too, to make sure the workflows are humming. And so then that's almost like a product type thing, right? Where you have like quality assurance steps that you need to take, almost have like product requirement documents for your content workflows. So that could also live in a sophisticated SEO team or maybe on a side. But then on top of that as well, we are seeing like the strategy owner. So yes, which topic clusters are we going to refresh this quarter? Which white papers are we going to create? Which templates are we going to build? You'll have a strategy owner maybe in a very traditional sense, like a content strategist, to pick out your experimentations and then optimize for performance and then just start to make those bets. So I think that's part of it as well. And then, of course, on top of that, you'll still have your executive or VP or whomever who will start to do the strategic direction and also help with that cross-functional buy-in to make sure that the context librarian is connected to the strategy owner. All those things are like getting updated. So there's a really exciting evolution, I think, that will start to happen. So yes, it's important to have, I would say, a content engineer on your team to take advantage. But then we're starting to see companies really think more broadly about how to implement this across their org.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, when we do workflows, we're kind of uploading the brand guideline documents each time, and I think that's helping. But because we're not linked to the brand source of truth, as you mentioned, it can become dated
Yeah.
relatively quickly. I mean, if we had access, which of course no enterprise organization would give you like permanent access to a drive folder that has their North Star documents in there, and they're often don't even know where to look for them. That can be that can be
Yeah,
problematic.
I mean, that's a good point. Like, where all are these things, and are we actually taking advantage of them? And I'm sure we've all been in like branding exercises of sorts where maybe it doesn't quite come to fruition on the timeline that we were hoping for, or people just kind of default to the old way of doing things. Well, this is actually an opportunity to improve on some of that because you can like automate that style change all across your organization. You can automate that brand voice across your organization, at least in a first draft. And I think that's something here that maybe gets lost, to tie it back a little bit to even that article from Ryan there, is like a lot of this is just giving us a place to start. It doesn't mean you have to use it right away, right? If we're talking about content generation. So let's use it for what it is like a good draft. And then, yes, of course, add your perspectives, opinions, your spiky point of view on it to make it your own. But I think it's helping us like kind of close that initial gap here pretty, a lot faster.
Agreed. I mean, one thing I'm thinking about as someone who's not development minded and is now kind of like going this direction. We've got a great lead doing this, as I've mentioned out loud. It's just like content teams, SEO teams are not used to being engineers. So like building a product roadmap, how do we actually think about developing this product that can be used globally? These are all kind of like junior people doing these activities for the first time. And that doesn't mean they're going to be incorrect, but I think we're all doing it likely in a slightly non-optimal state, having done it first. So maybe I'm talking out loud to have an actual engineer kind of advise at some point. But
Right.
any thinking on that? How do novice engineers, as it is, build product roadmaps and think about accountability and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time for sure. I think it's a blend of like some product and engineering there, but like product management is an older discipline, obviously, but there were some like fits and starts with it. And so I think we're still in that. Really tangibly, I just suggest like mapping out what you're trying to do. And as a writer first, we were chatting beforehand about how I have like a master's in English, like I write for fun, do all that stuff. Like it is very different for me to like map out every single process that I'm going to do. So I have to do my research, I have to do my plan, I have to do my outline, I have to write, I have to revise, I have to edit, I have my whole checklist, I have my internal linking, all of those things. And so it really behooves teams to just get in your fig jam, your Mira board, whatever, and then just like put the sticky notes across and really just think strategically and critically about like each part of the process and what that entails to get there. And what I have found in doing that a few times, I won't say I'm like perfect at it, is there's more steps involved than I like think. Because sometimes I'm just not even cognizant that like, oh yeah, I add a double space here because that's just our formatting. Or yes, I'm always on the lookout for an internal link, or I'm trying to add an image every 200 to 300 words. Like once I start saying it out loud, I'm aware of it. But sometimes in the moment when I'm just like editing a blog post, those are just things that I'm like just doing, right? Or adding a CTA here and there. That once you start to scope it out, you're like, oh yeah, I can really bring this home and really add some structure to it. So, yes, there is some product management there, but also it just might be the process of just being very deliberate about what you're already doing.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, you remind me of something that was an insight as we asked around the team of like not just the writing process, but for us as an agency, we report back on what we worked on that week, what the client should expect. And we write like a summary email. And someone was like, this is taking us a lot of time to do this. So that act of like simply automating the summary of what we're working on was like pretty impactful in the content process for us. And vice versa, using time tracking in an agency environment, that's natural. In-house, it
Right.
may not be as much, but we're really getting granular there and feeling good about time tracking within the tools we use. I think makes this then you kind of resort by leverage, right? Like where are we wasting the most time, and where could we spending it more adding value?
Yeah, like definitely start small on things like that. So, I do a lot of webinars and I take conversations like this. And one of the things I do is I always put a TLDR like at the top. I mean, that's automated for us. I do read it. I do read it before I hit publish, but it gives the AirOps workflows that we have gives me a starting place to just be like, yes, this is a good summary of what we talked about, or no. And then I edit it. Um, do I ever hit publish like right away? Very often not. Like I go back and edit, but it gave me a good head start there and is saving me some time. So I would say that's one example. Another example from the webinars I do is we have a workflow where it identifies key quotes that kind of stood out based on the topics that we talked about. And so it can take my previous webinar transcripts, compare it and understand the topics that I'm most interested in or what has worked well in the past, and then surface good quotes from those that I can then use in my blog post recaps. And then it also helps me pick out clips to like include in my blog post. It's like, hey, this was a good quote. Here's another good quote. So that's just like one example of beyond kind of content text generation, but it's definitely part of content teams that helps us do that. I also have something similar for the newsletters I send out to where it gives me like a short summary of a blog post, of a research report, of a webinar that I can then copy and paste and put into my newsletter.
Nice. Yeah, I just talked to Angie's Caroline Gilbert, and she mentioned transformation was a very common thing of like taking current content and then doing something with it, like repurposing it,
Oh,
summary.
yeah.
Yeah, clips. I think exactly what you're describing is I mean, I agree with that use case 100%.
It's a top use case for sure. And as we all know, there's so many more channels and places, and also that frequency that we kind of have to keep up with that I think empowers teams to kind of keep up in more places that they've always wanted to do, but maybe more difficult without this.
Yeah. So I mean, you hit on some of it. I think you uh, pre got my question there. But any other things that tie into your AirOps content strategy and like how are you thinking specifically for yourself? This whole content engineering thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, you use your own tool. I'm sure.
Right. Yeah, we do. And I think the one thing that I'm finding value just comparing to, like, say, before times in some ways is just that content optimization and refresh. So we've all, it's slightly changed a little bit, maybe with AI search, but we've all had that feeling of slipping from like the first to like the fifth or number three to like page two or whatever it is in that case, where the rankings might not be there, the traffic might not be there anymore. And so now one of the most valuable use cases we're seeing is like you can connect GSC and things like that to see like, hey, which queries have slipped, which pages have slipped, and then give me some suggested updates because you can set up workflows to compare it to what's currently ranking or in the SERP or what's currently rank or appearing in like AI search, and then give you suggestions on how you might improve that. So that could be like structure, schema. It could also be like information or updated data that you need to do. And then now that's informing me as like the content strategist to make that decision on which areas do I want to update or not? What do I want to include or not? And it's not necessarily like, hey, I'm just going to push this button and everything gets updated and I don't know what happened. It's like an informed decision about what to update and what to refresh. And just as a content marketer and SEO person, I have found that like super valuable for those suggestions. And it's kind of taken I wouldn't say remove that analysis away. It's just helped like inform the analysis for sure. As I'm sure we've all worked through that either in-house or with clients on trying to make some of those decisions. Um, yeah, have you ever explored that aspect? I mean, I'm sure that's a pretty typical motion for your team.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely, we do a lot of digital PR, so kind of having a motion like that with data updates is big. I think of it's almost like a dopamine hit. It's not. It's almost like if you don't have a smart content strategist like you leading it, we fall into the risk of we update something, and almost certainly, as long as it's not a terrible update, you at least see some jolt in traffic just because you have the date freshness click through rate lift. But
Sure.
if we actually didn't do a good update, there's risk there, right? Like we may upset actual users because we're not up to date, and there's a lagging effect of the engagement metrics not continuing. So I'm not saying you do any of that. I just think about that in that's like the biggest risk of this AI workflow around updates is we
Mm.
really push them very quickly. And maybe there's more governments things we can all be. I mean, probably monitoring engagement rate after the fact is like critical in that way. But yeah, I'm sure you do a great job of that for yourself. But I don't know if you thought about that in the context of your customers at all.
Again, it's who's in the seat and how informed they are to make some of these
Yeah.
decisions. It's not just the easy button, but it's like, hey, I really want to improve this topic cluster or this set of blog categories. Uh, I'm going to see what these workflows suggest for me, and then I'm going to implement the ones that make sense. And so just like anything else, it's like, I'm going to do this one, but skip that one, do this one, but skip that one, and just like making those informed decisions. So I would say the clients that see the most success for us are the ones who already have an informed SEO strategy. Like the people who come to us, and I'm sure you get this maybe as an agency as well, who are like, I've heard about search and AI search, and I've heard about SEO. I think it's important, but I don't have any experience in doing it. Like they're not going to be successful with our tool because they don't already have that like foundation in place. And it really is like a level set to be like, no, you need to learn some of these fundamentals before you start implementing our tool. You need to test out this motion to make sure SEO is right for you before you start doing this. I mean, Eli Schwartz calls it search market fit, which I think is like the perfect term for it. It's like, does my brand and my product actually fit for search? But that's like a way high level step. But like once you make that determination, then yeah, you start to build in some of these processes and inform yourself. Um, I do have one other use case that I've been excited about recently, if you want me to share that as well.
Yeah, one quick analogy
Yeah.
you made me think of, and that was why I was smirking, which you might have seen, was the hat you're wearing. He was on your team. I think of it almost like giving Barry Bonds steroids. It's like if you give Barry Bonds steroids, he's going to break the home run record. If you just give some random middle schooler who's never connected with a bat steroids, he may only have health problems, if not worse. So, I mean, obviously, Barry, we don't have to go super deep, but I think of that with your New York Mets hat for the people listening. He was on the team for a couple years, right? I don't know how diehard of a fan you are, but
I'm not super diehard.
yeah,
I
yeah,
am a
okay, yeah.
baseball fan. I kind of forgot about that. That's funny. Yeah. But I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
he
familiar
was,
with
right?
Barry
I'm not
Bonds.
wrong about this. I feel like I'm remembering
We'll
this
have to
correct.
check that in
Um,
post-production. I can't remember.
Yes. Sorry, I'm completely wrong. So,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that might have been an AI correction. I don't know why I thought that. Pirates and Giants only.
The Mets
I
did
think
have Barry Bonilla, who they paid like, that
oh, that's
crazy
who I'm probably
contract. It's
thinking
like
about. Yeah.
$1 every
Yes.
year to like 2037 or
Yes.
$1 million every year to like anyway. Um,
Nice.
yes,
Yeah, what's
but
the other use case? Yeah,
your
yeah,
analogy does stand, I think. It's like, yes, putting it in the hands of the right people makes all the difference. Um Oh, yeah, my other use case I wanted to mention was we're doing, like a lot of other companies, like backlink outreach, and one of the great use cases we've seen is, AirOps can suggest pages where they think your brand fits, and so we have, like, the URL, but then we've also started a motion to where, we have a workflow to where it will assess the page, create outreach email text for you, and then is very often formatted in the version that they have. So, for example, best LLM visibility trackers, we want AirOps on there. It will craft a sample text that you could send over to the person to ask for a backlink, and then say like, "Hey, put AirOps," and then it'll have like it formatted just like that page. And so, as a person that has done that a lot in the past and helped with teams do that, I mean, that's just like some time savings there for sure. We still copy and paste the email over and send it. We still edit it and look at it. But again, it gives us that little bit of a head start to where these savings in time really begin to compound.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you remind me of two sides there. One, the positive side for sure is that I know you have an LLM visibility tool within AirOps as well. We all know and are more seeing those affiliate type results in more LLM visibility lists and things of that nature. And having that kind of shortcut email outreach that you do that, I mean, you may need to be pay to be placed there, probably paid per lead. That's all positive. My only like counter to that, I'm not, again, you gave the right discretion there, is the BuzzStream folks, and I actually just about to publish a video on this, have a nice study that shows the more volume you send, there's like a very direct correlation and like placements. And actually under 50 emails, there's just a massive lift in how many placements you get. So all that, I mean, it's all great. I think you're hitting on the same themes as the other one, but I at least want to give that discretion to people in case that junior person hears this and is like, I'm going to go spend
Right.
3,000 emails out to people.
I actually had Vince Nero on our AirOps
Oh,
webinar
nice.
as well to like talk about that study. And for digital, I'm talking more about like kind of B2B backlinks, but like for journalists, they receive a ton of pitches every day, and you really do have to like stand out. And they have such strong spam filters, and you need to like personally customize it all down the line, especially when reaching out to journalists. So yeah, their study is really great, and I had a really great talk with him. So yes, you're exactly right. The mass blasting, don't do it.
Yeah, not Vince former Sieger. You may know
That's
that, you may
right.
not,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He
Yeah,
did
yeah,
mention
yeah, yeah.
that.
Yeah, so yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, it's great, Josh. Anything else we didn't hit or, yeah, where people, I know you put out some great webinars. People should go check those out on AirOps and obviously AirOps as well, but find you on LinkedIn. Where else should they find you?
Yes, LinkedIn, just slash Josh Spilker, airops.com. We also have some really great research reports. We actually just did one on third party and offsite mentions, and that's at airops.com/report. And then, yes, airops.com blog is where we put all of our stuff. So, yeah, happy to check it out, and feel free to reach out on LinkedIn.
Yeah, love your reports. I reference them a lot in terms of like the freshness stuff and all that. So I really appreciate you guys doing those and keep those up, please.
Yeah, they've been great.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much.